Hey, what's up guys? So today we're going to be having a discussion video on the good versus bad new additions of certain card color frames. And kind of what I mean by that is basically the extra deck, but technically there are cards that you would be main decking, for example, like Pendulums, that technically do go to the extra deck. But a lot of times I'm hearing in the Yu-Gi-Oh communities, wow, you know, Exceeds ruined Yu-Gi-Oh! Synchros ruined Yu-Gi-Oh! I've heard Links ruined Yu-Gi-Oh! Pendulums ruined Yu-Gi-Oh! There's a lot of players that have different feelings about this, and I kind of wanted to make this video and actually get some feedback from you guys to hear what you guys have to say about the different fusions and Exceeds and Links that kind of changed Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot. Like, basically, this video is about the extra deck cards that have changed Yu-Gi-Oh! But I also want to know how you guys personally feel about these, because a lot of people came into Yu-Gi-Oh! At different times. When I played on the Game Boy Advance, like, yo, you activate Cyber Sign, go for that Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. That was a really cool thing. And a lot of times in the earlier stage of Yu-Gi-Oh, because this is kind of also kind of a history of Yu-Gi-Oh too, basically the whole mindset of these extra deck monsters where they were powerful monsters where you're not able to pull off all the time, but if you happen to have the right cards and polymerization, you were able to make these powerful monsters at some point. But I wanted to start off this video with fusion monsters because there are so many really cool ones, especially there's so many e-hero ones that just never saw the light of day. And if some of you guys have played the Yu-Gi-Oh games that weren't like the traditional Yu-Gi-Oh games, like Duels of the Roses, like there's a lot of weird fusion mechanics where you just fuse to make these cards. But really what it comes down to in like actual Yu-Gi-Oh is you would get the cards and you would fusion with polymerization. But Gladiator Beast really changed up the game because they just didn't require it. And like nowadays there's a lot of cards that will just search and give you that card for free, or you can activate this card to count as polymerization, or whatever the case may be. You have easier access to it. What it really came down to in the earlier stages of Yu-Gi-Oh was really to actually utilize multiple cards to pull off one powerful card. But nowadays, I mean, that's the terrible idea. You just one card, go for OTKs, FTKs, easy combos. That's the whole point of Yu-Gi-Oh now. But I really feel like as far as fusions go, if we look at what's like limited and what's actually banned, I would say, and I'm also going to give you guys my thoughts on this, and also if for someone, because I know someone's comment like, why no camera? I want to be able to show you guys the effects of some of these powerful monsters, because again, people came into Yu-Gi-Oh! At different times. So I want to start off this with the cards that completely shaped up Yu-Gi-Oh! And as far as the fusions go, like the most memorable fusions back in the days, like Thousand Eyes Restrict and stuff like that, but with Elder Entity Norden, this really was the fusion monster that people would really fear. This was like a really easy go-to card, like instant fusion, go into this, go into another thing. This card was absolutely amazing in a lot of different decks. So it was basically a one-card Exceed monster, as well as an extender for like Mermails and other things. But as far as fusions go, and I want you guys to be able to comment down below how you guys feel about each one of these that I'm talking about. We're gonna go ahead and go over fusions. We're gonna be talking about Synchros, Exceeds, Pendulums, Links, and that kind of stuff. So as far as fusions go, I really don't feel like fusions like ruined the game, or because I really wanted to get your guys' thoughts on what actually ruined Yu-Gi-Oh! Or what made it better, because I thought fusions actually made the game better, definitely. If we look at what's actually limited even, like I really feel like Shaddoll's really shaped up fusions as well, being able to fuse from your main deck. Like that was a completely new gameplay mechanic, and I thought that was actually really cool. And the Ritual Beasts, they were kind of like decks that would be able to tag out, but they would banish themselves. And like both of these were very competitive at some point in the game. But I really feel like fusions overall was a really cool concept, and I like the idea of really utilizing multiple cards to bring out a powerful card. And then, like I said before, a lot of times you would be able to pull it off a lot easier nowadays in Yu-Gi-Oh! As previously. But I think overall fusions have done relatively well, and I think they're kind of cool for the game. I know that there are some cards and archetypes that would make some of these a little bit different than others as far as balance goes, but for the most part, I would say fusions definitely helped out the game. I would say that they were a good addition to Yu-Gi-Oh! They didn't like ruin it in any way. The next thing I want to go ahead and go over, which is one of my favorite, and I've always mentioned this, is Synchros. Synchros, as far as that goes, most of the stuff that is actually banned now is, I would say, relatively good for the game. Ancient Fairy opens up a lot of FTKs and OTKs, and it's just such a simple effect of just adding a field spell card. And then Deadlong, well, it is technically still illegal in the OCG at 3. It's basically just a searcher at the end of the day. It is able to just add another card. But I would say Synchros, what a lot of people's fan favorites. A lot of people really, really liked Synchro Monsters, and I thought it was a really cool concept. That originally, how tuners worked were they were kind of like bad. So you'd play these small little things that would essentially give you like a bigger boss monster version of it. You can see a lot of those with any of like the junk archetype ones. And like Synchros have some of the most iconic cards, like for example, Shooting Quasar Dragon, very, very iconic card. You have cards like Venturi Beast, which can shut down decks completely. Barkion can even shut down decks completely. And then you have some really cool like anime effects with like, for example, the Ultimate Soken, where you're able to get whatever you want. And even looking to the future of Synchros, we still have very powerful ones coming out into the game. And I like the idea of being able to have Synchros. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the card background or it's just that at the time I personally like got really back into Yu-Gi-Oh, because I started off playing on the Game Boy Advance and then I kind of just left because I just played on the Game Boy Advance, and then I played some of the PSP and Nintendo DS games. I didn't play physically, but I don't know for what reason I always think Synchros are the coolest. I mean, you have Odin, you have Thor, you have Loki, you have so many like, again, iconic Synchro cards in the game that were just so cool to go ahead and check out. And then once we got like these Synchro Pendulums, I actually thought that was a really crazy concept. But for the most part, like the Exceed, well, the only one that really saw like competitive play that I really remember off the top of my head, that's like a Pendulum, that's also like a Pendulum. Was it there was like some build, there's an FTK with one of the Exceed Pendulum monsters, but for the most part, I just thought they were really interesting. And then even Leo, back when Burning Abyss saw a lot of play, people were running this. I feel like Synchros, for I don't know what reason, to me are always the coolest. I mean, Red Dragon, Hot Red Dragon Archfiend, you still see some play. And again, you had Karakuris, they were all a Synchro based deck, and then you had Trishula, one of the most powerful monsters in the game when this card was out. And then you had Infernities throwing out Mistworm. I think Synchros, even though they had some crazy stuff where like there was Trishula loops and stuff, I would say that overall Synchros was at the peak of Yu-Gi-Oh! In fact, if you look at a lot of different metadata from like Google Trends, you'll see that Synchros were one of the most popular times in Yu-Gi-Oh! And then I also remember Bios. I mean, there's just so many like really, really iconic Synchros. Even from like the TV show, Armory Arm, there's just so many really cool like decks that I remember, like Armory Arm Buster Blader. There's just a lot of cool things that Synchros did offer. And then we had the Dragonides. I mean, for a long time, level 8 was like the go-to Synchro, right? And then Dragonides were able to throw out every single turn. That was a really different point in Yu-Gi-Oh! And then now it's just like, you go for first turn, Stardust Pass is like a joke, right? But I really feel like overall Synchros were a really cool concept because you'd play these smaller monsters and in combination, you didn't really require, like you would with fusion monsters, that polymerization that you needed. But again, there are a lot of really cool fusions that we have gotten more recently, like the Sea Monster Thesis, which actually opens up the doors for a lot of different decks if you play instant fusion. But I think, say like Thousand Eyes Restrict is one of the most like go-to cards, and then the Millennium Eyes, you have the ability to absorb like fusions. Again, I feel like fusions, I think, were overall positive. Synchro was overall positive. Next, I want to go ahead and hop into the Exceeds, and like I said, at any point you guys can comment down below and let me know how you feel about any of the things we're talking about. So I want to hop into the Exceeds. Now, I always thought this mechanic was cool, and I was actually talking to other game developers of card games, and it was this other card game where some of these equip cards, what they were plastic see-through cards, and you would stack them on top of other cards. And I was like, dude, that's such a cool mechanic of stacking cards on top of each other. And I like the idea of a lot of the Exceeds having effects where you would detach as material, so you would lose some of their effects because you would be able to get this powerful effect. And it really, what it comes down to as far as Exceed goes, Tour Guide really shaped up the game because you had a one card. Why is it not? Oh, Tour Guide is not an Exceed monster, okay. But it was a card that really made Exceeds so much better. You would Tour Guide right into another Tour Guide, or Tour Guide into Sangan, and you'd be able to have a one card, get anything from the Banished Zone, with Levier. You had so many, if I could spell. Levier, this was a really iconic card in like the Dino Rabbit era. This was really, really cool. And I just think the idea of being able to detach as like ammo even, it was cool. I know there were people that didn't really like Exceeds, especially when they first came out. We had Zen Mains, that was a very iconic card. And then you also happen to have the wind-ups that would just obliterate your hand. Like, as far as it goes, you know, Zen Mains was a relatively defensive card. But this card, I feel like, well, it is banned technically now, but I would say overall, I thought Exceeds were really cool. Like, just going into all of the Exceeds here, we had a lot of different decks that totally revolved around Exceeds. For example, the Satellar Knights, they were all about it, and now we see the Utopia Cheese running around once in a while, and it's kind of cool to see. And then we also technically, if we go to like what is actually banned over here, we actually have quite a bit. We have like Tomahawk, because this opened up a lot of FTKs as well. But you have cards like Volvo Chain, number 86. These like definitely just shaped up the game quite a bit. And then Invoker also opened up a lot of OTKs. But overall, I mean, this card came out kind of late. But at the same time, for the TCG, I mean, there were a lot of cool Exceeds. And overall, I would say that the Exceeds were relatively cool in the game. And I think that they were a great mechanic. Again, feel free to let me know if you felt like Exceeds were too OP. We're talking obviously about at the time that they were released. There was a lot of, again, powerful things. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Has definitely changed, and I just think the concept of game design is a cool idea. You would use multiple cards to make one card, and then you would use the other material as kind of ammo. It's cool. It's a cool mechanic. I thought it was really awesome. Next thing I want to talk about now is the Pendulums. Okay, so as far as like what is not available in the game, man, I mean, there are cards that just would reoccur, and I think one reason why, and this was from analytic data that I had from a lot of different card shops, they actually mentioned to me when Pendulums like came out, obviously a lot of people were interested in learning the new mechanic, and a lot of other things emerged, and gameplay styles emerged out of just going all in. It didn't work, okay, next turn go all in. A lot of people actually left the game, even in Japan. And this is one speculation to why the whole pendulum mechanic was actually changed for Lynx, is because the decline in a lot of different places in terms of sales. Because obviously we do have a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Online games. Those also emerged, so that could have also been a cause of this. And sometimes, you know, there's other correlations that are related to a decline in a player base for a certain card shop, or whatever the case may be. Another card shop opens up. But at the same time, I disliked the concept of Pendulums at the time that they came out, and that was really due to just being able to go all in. You didn't really have any way to be punished because, well, you just summon them all again, right? Obviously, this changed with the new format, but again, at the time, I just felt like the whole concept of just, it was insane to just see this go all in. We don't even have anything limited over here, especially with like Electromite over there. You're just able to go ahead and search out whatever you want with Pendulums. And they are very powerful. Like, magicians are insane, especially with the mythical beasts. You have Jackal and Cerberus and things where you can open up consistently going for that first turn Heretic Seal. And then on top of that, you have the Vortex. You're looking at like 3 to 4 consistent negates with that deck. And while the deck, the whole Pepe deck got nerfed so fast. I mean, we're talking like within like a week, right? For some players, they barely even were able to finish and complete their deck after buying it. And then like, you know, 1 week later, bam, you get hit with that list. It was really disappointing for anyone that spent money on it. It was a real slap in the face, I would say, because it was no question one of the best decks at the time. But really what it comes down to is the pendulum mechanic, I guess, for a lot of people, they feel like it ruined Yu-Gi-Oh! And honestly, I felt the same way. I just felt like when pendulums were first introduced, I just disliked the mechanic. And I still dislike the mechanic of special summoning everything at once. Obviously now that has changed, but with the amount of times pendulums decks, and I think this is like, I mean, this is almost a topic for another video of like, why people leave Yu-Gi-Oh! I feel like Pendulum decks compared to any other decks, they take the longest. Like, you literally sit against a Pendulum player, okay, search this, I'm gonna search this, I'm gonna activate this card adds this card pops this to go ahead and search out this, and then when this card gets popped, there's like way too many things with Pendulums. At least that's how I feel with the amount of searchability. Like, you look at any of the Pendulum decks, it's like pop this to add this, and that's because the way that the mechanic is designed with Pendulums is like, you have to be able to give them the ability to special summon multiple times, especially with the heavy metal foes. Obviously with Nibiru that kind of helps out, but I mean technically now with Mythical Beast they can kind of play around it, but at the same time again with Gate Zero, Dark Worm, it's just the amount of special summoning that and like adding search, pop this, do this, it gets to the point where like, dude, I don't even want to play, or like, you know, how long is it going to take until you finish? And especially if you play against a rogue pendulum deck, and I know that sounds dumb, but like, I'm talking about like something weird. There's just so many, like, look at the text on these pendulum monsters. Even the vanilla pendulums, their text is just way too long. I could rant about this in its own video, but I really am still not a fan of the way originally Pendulums were designed. And obviously that did change, and that made it a little bit player salty, because it definitely ruins Pendulums. I mean, the concept was go all in, dude, summon all of these crazy monsters and go off, and if it doesn't work, well, next turn just summon a bunch of monsters, right? It would kind of remind me of like the anime, and that's why, like, you know, when I made those Yu-Gi-Oh vines, you felt it. Like your opponent would just slam the board with a bunch of monsters. But I would say overall, Pendulums did ruin Yu-Gi-Oh a little bit, definitely. I mean, you had some insane cards. Like I remember when I believe this was a sneak peek card, or anyways, or I saw it in sneak peek. But anyways, the monster effect of the Samurai Cavalry. I remember some people were complaining about this. I know some of you guys laughing, but it's a monster effect where if it attacks a monster's not Pendulum, it was like a walking Catastor. I know Catastor's a joke now, but Catastor at one point was like a staple Synchro monster. But it's just because the game has evolved. And now we look at this as a joke. I mean, it still doesn't have that bad of an effect where if it attacks anything that's not Pendulum, it goes away, right? Pretty nice stuff. But now you'll just bounce the card back, do whatever, and just completely ruin it. But overall, again, I would say Pendulums kind of ruined the game, or halted what I would consider like advanced progression in the game, where everyone is happy about it, right? Next, moving on to what we have right now, I want to talk about the, again, this is all about the extra links. I'm kind of like 50-50 on links. Like, there's a lot of things that, like, unfortunately just don't work. Like, I had this discussion, like, a while ago with some Yu-Gi-Oh players. We were talking about, like, how links ruin certain decks. Like, technically, yes, I understand that you can play things and make a first turn Quasar, and you could still go off with other decks. Like, our Dragons kind of allow a lot of things to kind of go off. But if we go ahead and look at what's banned, I mean, like, there's a lot of these, well, this is more recent, but a lot of these cards opened up so many ridiculous, like this was, oh man. I mean, what I don't understand is like how you could design a card like Firewall Dragon and not think that this card is going to be like absolutely ridiculous, or even Summon Sorceress. Obviously with this, I mean, there's a whole Orcus combo. I want to say Orcus got this guy on the list, but at the same time, like these two cards, come on, you can't say in design aspect that you did not see this coming. I think these are absolutely ridiculous. This is obviously, but I mean, it has some of the effects of cards that are actually banned, and that's what makes some cards OP, right? But if we go to what's limited, I mean, this card for the most part, you only need one anyways, but like, you need it for Pendulums to actually be even somewhat viable in the game. But overall, like, the thing that I don't like with Link Monsters is decks like, before Karakuri got like all the new support, is like there were so many things that were absolutely unplayable. Like, Karakuri was so unplayable with Link. When, of course, the new Master Rule came out. But overall, like, how I feel about Links is it makes it so you have to play Links, right? Because with Pendulums, there's a lot of archetypes that just didn't have to play Pendulums, right? There were so many other decks that were still viable to play, but I feel like this was kind of a real push to the community where like, yo, buy our new cards, because if you want to go ahead and make a lot of your, you know, plays in your deck, you have to, because everyone wants to go for extra deck monsters. Extra deck monsters are the cool part of Yu-Gi-Oh! They're the boss, the most powerful monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are usually within the extra deck. And there are so many decks that just literally can't function because they have to have those zones, and it makes it become a lot more difficult for certain decks. So there's that downside. But what I do like with the upside is like you have a lot more options. Basically, Cerberus and Phoenix allow you to go ahead and not need to run MST or any backrow disruption because you happen to have them at your disposal. But really, I feel like when Link Era happened, a lot of decks were oriented around going first, making these boards, and saying you cannot play Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's really where I felt like there's a lot of problems with Links, because the way that they're designed is to go spam, 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 and get more, get more. And it almost reminds me of Pendulums, but like Pendulums, while they still can do a lot of stuff and have multiple negations, it all came out with basically Links, right? I mean, you could argue with Rongo number 86, like there was technically a Pendulum build of that, but for the most part, I just feel like a lot of times with Links, it goes back to the same like gameplay mechanic of Pendulums, where it's like go for this, okay, search this. It takes too long to finally get to your turn, which I feel like is kind of a flaw in Yu-Gi-Oh's gameplay design, at least from a standpoint of someone that is entering the game. If you go ahead and play against someone that maybe has really minimal knowledge on Yu-Gi-Oh, and you go ahead and make your play, and then you say, okay, I'm gonna search this, okay, this activates, and then this. Links and Pendulums are the ones that really enable all of that. When we go back to the fusion, you would use these two cards, you fusion, you make the monster, and then maybe the fusion monster has one effect, right? But I think that the amount of text on these cards is just it really is a little bit overwhelming for a lot of players, and I totally get that. But for the most part, I would say with links, there's a lot of cards where it's just like two or three monsters with different names but same attribute or types or whatever the case may be. And I remember Decode Talker was like the first OG, like you make this card, then you can make your plays. But for the most part, I would say like I'm kind of half on this one, honestly. But I would love to know what you guys think of this. So overall, a summary of what made Yu-Gi-Oh good or bad. And again, this is a subjective video. I mean, all it really comes down to is, you know, a matter of opinion. I felt like Fusions, as far as the extra goes, that was an improvement for you. That was a step in the right direction. Synchros, by far my favorite, and I think a really good addition to the game. Again, you're running some of these weaker, usually tuners were supposed to be like really small baby monsters, and you would use them, and you would synchro up for something really powerful. And I think that was a really cool concept. And Exceeds were even cool for me. Again, I would say Exceeds were a great addition to Yu-Gi-Oh! Pendulums, I mean, I gotta say overall, I gotta give Pendulums a thumbs down, man. And then for Links, it's kind of halfway. But I'm really curious to what is coming for the future in Yu-Gi-Oh! 2020. But anyways, like I said, guys, I want to know your thoughts down below. What do you guys think improved Yu-Gi-Oh? What do you guys feel like it made Yu-Gi-Oh! Worse in the extra deck? And era, kind of, because this is kind of side by side. But those are my thoughts. I would love to know yours down below. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this discussion video. It's been a while since we actually did a discussion video on my channel. But like I said, if you guys want to see more of these, let me know definitely in the comment section below. And if you guys are new here and do want to see more of my content, hit that subscribe button, turn on that bell, and you'll definitely see more. But thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a good one. And I'm signing out. Peace.